ladies and gentlemen. We are at Tokenize, Puerto Rico, 2024, and I'm sitting next to a really good friend of mine. Matt, I've known you for several years, but I haven't seen you since you guys had your son, Orion.
Yeah.
The last time I saw you guys, Puerto was pregnant. You guys were both glowing. And now we have this beautiful young boy. How old is he now?
He's 3.5.
3.5, long hair. He's the sweetest little guy, whatever, like being a dad.
But it's amazing. It's amazing. It's one of the greatest feelings in the world. It kind of, in the blockchain industry, we're constantly like having different measures of success where we're like trying to build something new, but it's such a thing that fills your cup up in a different way, right? Such a different way. You're stewarding on their life, you're teaching them things, you're watching like this conscious AI system, come online kind of thing.
I'm so glad you said that because you're teaching them, and you're literally the only person I know who's done this, and maybe it's just my circle, but you have a WhatsApp group that you started when he was pregnant, and you have godmothers and fathers and like dogs and cats. You got everybody in there watching the growth of your child, and they're all part of it.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about that. That's incredible.
It was a really cool invention. I call it the Decentralized Godparents Network, right? And so, he was born, at the end of COVID, like in June of 2021. So the baby shower was in May of 2021. Parents couldn't really travel. We had 10 people at our house. It was small, but we did it on Zoom and we recorded it so that all our friends and family could come and join the Zoom and the baby shower. And then we all put them in. I was like, we have to build a network. We have to build a DAO around the kid. Like, what if the kid had, a DAO that watched him grow up? And then when he gets the hold of this network, they're all like incentivized and really like emotionally attached to the success of your child. And, everyone wants to have older people like in their life when they're younger, so they're teaching them things. And so to get into the Decentralized Godparents Network, you have to, meet them. You want to help them out, and then you want to teach them something meaningful. Right now it's a WhatsApp group, but like eventually you could conceptualize like some sort of like DAO app where everyone jumps on, they can contribute a little bit of time. The kids could write a proposal like, hey, I want to go to Paris, right? And they're like, all right, cool, well, write us a proposal. And then the godparents can say, all right, we'll fund that, you go see that, whatever. And it takes a village, right? Is the book by Hillary Clinton, but like it literally doing a decentralized like online village for your kid to support them.
That's so incredible, Matt. And you said something before we came up here to do this interview, because your son is just down the street at school.
Yeah.
And you and Brittany are going to pick him up. And what I heard was, I want to bring him back so I can introduce him to his crypto godparents, mother or father. And I'm like, that's so amazing. This transition, and I love this conversation. That's exactly what we wanted. Remember when my grandmother was alive and she lived in a retirement community, and she would go to the pool all the time. And the people at the pool were rocket scientists and brain surgeons and they were all withering away in the sun. And all of their collective consciousness was not being used. They were all just sitting in the pool, talking to each other, not really listening because they were all bragging of what they did their whole life. But what you've done is you've translated that and said, hey, no, those people can be the ones who can instruct my child if I let them through this vetting process.
Sure, vetting process. And then, it doesn't take a lot of time, but they can look at the pictures, they can be meaningful contributors. And then, it's always fun to have someone that's older, like be able to teach you something that you didn't know before. They have all these programs where you can go, like young kids can go spend time with older people in the homes and retirement homes, so that they're getting to spend time with the young kids. So this is like digital platform for that, but around like a network around your kid kind of thing.
That is so awesome.
Eventually we need to productize it, right?
Well, and that's the beautiful thing. I mean, literally I've done hundreds of interviews, and you've been interviewed hundreds of times. And I've never had this type of conversation. It's always about, I got a yacht, or, I got a couple buildings and I got a plane, but it really is about the youth. And back in Utah, I mentor the youth, and it is more for me than it is for them, right? I have a trivia question. I'm sure you know the answer, but how do you put water inside a cup that's already full?
I don't know.
Force them out.
First amount.
So that's why they say at the end of the night, you know, sometimes people are like, I've had it up to here because they didn't pour it out. And the way you pour it out is service and gifts and
Give it away.
right, you give it away. And so you make yourself more space in that cup. And those that keep that cup full, there's an old adage, and I'm going to pass this to you with a question, but Christ said when he was on the planet, he said, if you hold back, you'll die. But if you give, you'll live. And what he was literally saying is, if you hold your breath, the next action is exhale. But if you exhale and give, your next action is inhale and you'll live. And I've always seen you, Matt, as like a giver. I wouldn't call it nice, but you've been kind. And there's a definite difference, right? You're discerning and stuff like that. How important is it to you that we have a good and kind and wholesome community? How important is it to have good people around it?
It's one of the most important things. It's one of the things that fills me up most in the world is like having community wherever we go, right? Like about this community in general is very international. We run around the world. We're building open source things internationally. But yeah, it's one of the most important things in the world. And I think the technologies that we're building here are the things that allow us to connect even more and build trusted relationships, you know, scaling trust, right, around the world. The people also that are in the room, you know, like they've been around for 10 years. And so you got to you should be kind. Like they're always going to remember that moment if you were kind of the, you know, a jerk to them, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, you know, that actually happened to me. I was in Puerto Rico, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. I must not have had the right amount of food and I had low blood sugar. And I snapped. I don't know what happened, but I snapped. And I looked at the guy. It took me 3 days, but I apologized for 3 days straight. I'm like, dude, I am so sorry. He's like, don't even worry about it. But we're human. And so we do falter.
Fallible.
That we're fallible. But at the same time, kind of like when we went to your house last night, I kind of associated, and hopefully I'm doing it justice. But when we die and we go back and we see our loved ones, I kind of think that I see that on earth here. When I see you and Brittany, it's like coming back to heaven.
Thank you. That's, you know,
Brother and sister.
For sure. Absolutely, brother. It's such a good pleasure to see you again. It's been a couple years. Let's make it not a couple more years.
Right.
That's right. Let's hang out more.
Yeah. So we're going to finish this interview with a couple more questions and we'll end it since it's a short interview. Okay. You and Brittany, and this is so very important, you and Brittany work together. You work on different projects, but you collaborate on quite a few things. It's unique. There's only a handful of people who do that. I know it's not a secret, but can you give us a little bit of a free clue? How do you make that work?
Yeah, well, we've learned a lot over the past couple of years. Well, you know, that's how we started our relationship, really, was we started collaborating and building stuff in blockchain event series mostly. So we did an event in Hong Kong in 2017, and then we did one of the first blockchain events in Davos in the World Economic Forum in 2018. So that was kind of how we started collaborating and liking and working with each other. And so we've kind of always had that kind of co-creative energy in that sense. You know, I've also worked on Satoshi and, you know, there's been lessons learned. Like, I wouldn't want to manage her as a person. Like, I'll help take a message if someone wants to get a thing, but like, that's something that I've learned is like, I don't want to do that because that would get in the way of our relationship. And so I guess it's learning about like what you do want to do and what you don't want to do, how you want to kind of manage each other's, pluses and minuses, if you will, challenges and strengths.
Well, it makes so much sense because obviously you're translating it to your son because both that energy is being translated. Lastly, I'd love for you to do me a favor.
Sure.
If you could look into the camera, and we did this, oh man, I can't wait to get that video on film to have people see it. They'll be crying their eyes out because you spoke to Orion on the film before he was formed.
Orion.
But I'd like you to look into the camera for those parents who, whether they're struggling or they're doing it right, can you give some advice? I know it's crazy because not too long ago you were just a punk kid with no child, but now you have this wisdom as a father and you've done really well. And if there's any advice you could give to anybody within our community or outside the community who has a child, what would you give them to help them grow healthy, well-adjusted, and strong?
I would say, you know, build your community around you and make sure that there's resilient mutual aid structures no matter what. Love everyone unconditionally, right, is always a good one. I was at the Network State Conference in Singapore in September, and I got to see one of the speakers from the natalism conference in Austin. And so natalism is like pro having lots of children, right? Because we're going through a demographic collapse.
Right.
And their main gist of the whole talk was plan for grandchildren. Right? That's the only thing you need to do. You need to be planning for grandchildren.
Yeah.
Because if you're not planning for grandchildren, then you're not planning for the legacy of your existence moving forward. And a lot of people are not planning for grandchildren. So,
Great call.
that's one thing that stuck with me from his talk there.
Dude, that's a great call. I can't, yeah. Let me say this from an observation, and as we close down this interview, I was over at your house last night, and being neurodivergent, which 95% of the people who are watching this are, and I'm sure you have some of this, we see everything. And what I saw was so adorable. What I saw was these adults walking in who are complete strangers to your son, and as we walked into the back of the house, your son was dipping his toe into the community as he came around and he placed a wheel on a couch and then went back. And then he came back and put a truck on his head. And I watched you and I watched Brittany.
Yeah.
And it was, you can do whatever, you're in a safe space. You can do whatever you want. You can come and go. These people are okay.
Yeah.
And he was part of it in his own way.
Sure.
You didn't have to parade him in.
Yeah. No.
He didn't have to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But from an outside point of view, isn't it funny what people are saying? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just there to visit you, and I'm like, what a great.
This is a relatively small apartment, right?
It's a small
For
apartment.
5 people. But he's been to 17 countries. He's run around the world, in a lot of ways. And so he's been around a lot of our friends and adults and things. So I'd say we've socialized him in that way very well. So,
And he's like a little animal, like, no, seriously. So if you find one of those video things where like you save a badger, the next day the badger's got like a squirrel on the thing and he's laying stuff at your feet, and I think that like little Orion, he was like being a part of the little community in his own little way. And that's just me and my own observation, but I've seen other families where it's a little bit more like, be like us, comport yourself in this way because this is how our family acts.
Sure.
You wear your awesome hats, so does your wife, and your son has his long hair and he's just doing his thing.
Yeah.
With structure, clearly.
Well, he's got structure, but yeah, he loves doing his thing, and you're in his environment, so he's going to show you all his toys. I love that. It was great.
Dude, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, all right. Thank you guys for spending time with us.